It will be hard to find many better finals this year or maybe in the next few years. The semi-final between Port Adelaide and Hawthorn had everything. Controversial free kicks, an incredibly close score review, a goal assist from a Falcon, and above all else, a football game that was full of passion and emotion. We saw this on the field and it spilled off the field, which will have repercussions in the future. In the end, it did come down to a James Sicily set shot from just inside 50. Watching the replays, the ball hitting the post did make the kick look better than it really was. It was always left and just faded a touch at the end. Hawthorn had their chances through Dylan Moore and Jack Ginnivan as well in the final term and just couldn't get that one goal. The Hawks and Power have now played 3 times in finals and every match has been decided by exactly 3 points. This was a classic and will be remembered for a very long time, if not for what happened during the 120 minutes of play, then for what took place 10 minutes after the final siren. Whether you liked or disliked what Port Adelaide coach Ken Hinkley did, we can all agree it was perfect drama for the night. It showed the emotion, pressure and competitiveness on both sides who fought and played their hearts out. Hinkley eyed Jack Ginnivan as the teams were heading to cheer off Luke Bruce in his 300th game and just let it out. He said, "Hey Jack, you're not flying Jack, you're not flying, you expletive head." This was obviously in response to the comment Jack Ginnivan made on former teammate, now Sydney Ruckman Brodie Grundy's Instagram post. Hinkley was laughing and smiling, as were many of the Power players walking beside him. From this angle, we can see Ginnivan is also smiling and seems to be copping the sledge on the chin. However, his captain in James Sicily was not impressed and went to bat in. He called Hinkley a smartass with a few more expletives, and you can see the near disgust on his face. Even when cheering off Bruce, Sicily was still directing his attention towards Hinkley. It doesn't get any more tense than that. Hinkley immediately apologised when speaking to Brian Taylor post-game, saying, "I'll be honest. Jack said what he said through the week, and I just told him after the game he wasn't going anywhere. I don't know social media, I just do what I do. I probably shouldn't have done it. I should apologise to the boys. I shouldn't have probably done it. But the reality was, you throw something our way, we're going to throw something back occasionally." He reiterated this more strongly in his post-game presser. Hinkley did back off on what he did, but it's hard not to believe it wasn't bubbling away in his mind that if they won, that he would give it to Ginnivan verbally. Asked if he had used Ginnivan's social media comment as motivation for the team, Hinkley said, "A fair bit. And that's probably why it got to the point it did. We as a footy club found it a little bit disrespectful, and that's why it gets to where it gets." Now, was it classy by Hinkley? Far from it. But in context, we know his coaching is built on pure emotion. This was one of his greatest wins against a side heavily favoured on the road, and he now holds onto his job for perhaps another season. Whether Ginnivan meant disrespect or not, it doesn't matter to Hinkley, who does represent the Port Adelaide Football Club. Ginnivan went early being a smart aleck, and Hinkley simply had a crack back. Remember, in this whole thing, Ginnivan was laughing on the sidelines and did seem to understand where Hinkley was coming from. Sam Mitchell wasn't so forgiving. He was fuming in his post-game press conference. Speaking about the incident, he said, "We have a very young player who was having some very aggressive words said to him by a much older man who's been in the game for a long time, and the captain of my club stood up for him. And so I think it's really tough to sit here right now, getting rushed by the AFL to make sure you're at your press conference on time. So I understand the emotions of this time of year are really difficult, and I'm really proud of our captain, who would have been just as emotional, who was able to stand up and lead in a way that he could be proud of." Mitchell's presser was full of emotion and was unbelievable to watch. He does make the fair point of being rushed to the media, so perhaps his overall thoughts aren't as clear as they would be, say, by today. Now, did he try to make Ginnivan a bit of a victim here? Sure he did. Ginnivan is a 21-year-old adult, and again he did start all of this, but to Mitchell he is like a son. Hinkley clearly wasn't aggressive or violent in his taunt, but Mitchell, like all great coaches, will protect his players until the end. Asked if he would speak to Hinkley about the incident, he said absolutely not. The whole situation seems to boil down to if you can dish it out, you have to be able to take it back. Hawthorn were provocative this season with their own celebrating and taunting. Most of the time, it wasn't directed at the opposition and meant no harm. It was a part of their momentum wave, and Mitchell understood that, but it does paint a target on your back, and for some, it is on the edge of crossing over the sportsmanship line. But while you're winning, it is fine, and you can get away with it. But Ginnivan, even as light-hearted as he may have been, probably took it over the line with that comment, which he later admitted to teammates during the week. He knew what he was doing, and took the spray from Hinkley fair and square. So maybe Sicily, Mitchell, and other Hawthorn people in the media, such as Jordan Lewis and Luke Hodge, should adopt a similar attitude to Ginnivan. Hawthorn's winning was as exciting as we have seen, and they did have great fun with it. The bubble burst in a close game, and the football gods just weren't on the Hawks' side, so maybe it's time to cop it on the chin. If you can celebrate and go crazy in wins, then you have to be able to take it the other way when the opposition gives it to you. But for the neutrals watching at home, it just added another element of drama to what was already a fantastic game of football. Port Adelaide now faces the task of Sydney at the SCG. They are beat up after the brutal game and will be without Todd Marshall. They will be even bigger underdogs to the Swans, but match up well. Neither team has dominant big forwards, they both have relatively small backlines, and their best players are on the ball. And by the way, Port Adelaide has beaten Sydney the last 8 times they have played, including by 112 points this season at the Adelaide Oval. The last time Sydney defeated Port Adelaide was all the way back in round 20 of 2016. Some teams just match up better against others, and this may be the case. The deciding factor might be who plays better at a Goulden, Warner, Heaney against Horn, Francis, Rosie and Butters. The X factor in this game is everywhere. On the other side of things, Hawthorn will look to reload. Now the pressure and expectation will be greater in 2025, which always adds an interesting dynamic. But on paper, they will be even better. Josh Battle and Tom Barrass will come in, with James Blank also returning from an ACL injury. With the riches in the back half of the ground, it might allow James Sicily to play forward as he has done in spurts this year, and then Josh Weddle, who could explore a move into the midfield. They all can't play in the back 6 or 7, so there will be movement in that area of the ground. Mitch Lewis as a key forward is a wild card, and hopefully he can stay fit, and the same applies to Will Day. Many will have Hawthorn in the top 4 teams entering next year, and it's hard to disagree. Sam Mitchell has turned the club around quickly, and with a taste of September, including a finals win at the MCG, he has them well placed to go further in 2025. The finals history of Port Adelaide and Hawthorn has been epic, and the rematch next year could be a perfect setup to open Gather Round and will be must watch. You never know when a new rivalry will blossom, and one just did right in front of our eyes.